Hi, and welcome back to my channel, Micah Mackenzie. If you're new here, please remember to like, share, and subscribe, and hit the notification bell so that way you always know when I post a new episode. And if you like what you see here, be sure to tune in to the full-length episode, Podcast TNT, where all podcasts are available. For today's episode of TNT, as part of our back to school special, I am so glad to welcome you guys and introduce you all to my cousin and one of the best teachers I know. Her name is Asia, and her students know her as Ms.Clanton, and she's going to be on here to talk about what it is going to be like to return back to the classroom to do in person learning after COVID-19 and the pandemic. So, Asia, if you would like to introduce yourself and just sort of tell the audience a little bit about what you do, who you are.
Thanks, Micah. Again, my name is Asia Clanton. Like she said, my students call me Miss Clanton. I'll be going into my fourth year of teaching this year. I am an elementary school teacher. I've previously taught fifth grades and most recently third grade. This year I'll be teaching fourth grade. So new year, something new. I'm definitely excited and looking forward to that.
So are you like a traditional elementary school teacher where you teach all subjects, or are you just teaching one or two subjects?
So my first year of teaching, I strictly taught math and like science, social studies, and health. And then our school made a change, so kind of more towards the traditional setting where I teach everything.
Okay, so that's cool. So just to sort of give our viewers and listeners a little bit of background information as to what is happening, I'm sure like most of you all know that with this pandemic, a lot of parents have been forced to homeschool their children and help them in hybrid and online learning. But now with the vaccine, a lot of school districts are moving in towards a more hybrid in-person type of learning module. And for our state, Maryland, Baltimore County, and Baltimore City have moved into voluntary in-person or hybrid. You can still be virtual if you want to, but you have to do a special registration process to do that. And along with this push for in-person learning, of course, there has been a lot in the media discussing things around mask mandates. I'm sure plenty of you all have seen the viral videos of teachers and parents storming school board meetings, protesting their children wearing masks, most famously Lee Allen Baker, Amy Duncan from Good Luck Charlie, if you're familiar with that show. She came into her school board meeting and was protesting masks for her children. But now that we have the vaccine, everyone is trying to get vaccinated or decide whether or not they want to be vaccinated. But the problem is that a lot of parents are facing is that the vaccine, as of right now, is not available for children under the age of 12, which is specifically in that elementary school range, which is where Asia is teaching as she is an elementary school teacher. And we've also recently discovered that the new variants that are out, Delta and Lambda, seem to be more easier for children to catch, as a lot of children have recently come down with the Delta and Lambda variant. So, Asia, with all of this that's going on that we just sort of discussed, how are you feeling as a teacher? Like, do you feel like right now is the best time to return to the classroom for in-person learning?
That's definitely a challenging and tricky question to answer. And I've kind of been where I'm at the entire, I wouldn't say the entire pandemic, but like towards the beginning of last school year. So I definitely am constantly worrying about the health and safety of myself, my students, their parents and families, my colleagues and their families. And with all the new variants that are out, and even when COVID was still, or it still is alive and real, but when we were first exposed to it, it was definitely something really scary. I had a lot of students who didn't necessarily experience it themselves, but a lot of their family members were getting sick. So like just the hesitancy of going back into the building then was still scary. And even still now it's scary. Like you said, the vaccine isn't available for children 12 and under. And that's the population that I serve.
But you did mention some precautions and sort of resources that your school district is providing. So, what exactly do you feel like they are giving you to help ensure the safety and health of your students, the staff, and like the greater school community? Like, what steps have been taken to ensure that?
So in the particular district that I work in, last week our superintendent came out and made the statement that all staff um, had to be vaccinated, and if they chose not to, receive the vaccine, then they had to um, agree to weekly or routine testing. He didn't necessarily say in that memo how often it would be. He just said routine testing. So that's one thing that's been put in place by our county. He also reactivated the mask mandate. So students have to wear masks, students and staff have to wear masks in the buildings, except for when eating lunch. And then social distancing isn't as possible this year as it was last year when we didn't have all of the students in the building at one time, because it's kind of hard to be socially distant when you have 20 to 25 kids in a small classroom.
Yeah.
Social distancing isn't going to be a thing, but they also are still providing the hand sanitizers throughout the building and in classrooms, sanitizing wipes, and additional face masks. And just an extra precaution that I was going to do as a teacher, I plan on setting up my own health and safety and like sanitizing station with extra masks, extra wipes, hand sanitizer, and tissue. And fortunately, this year in my classroom, I have a sink and water fountain in my classroom. So students don't have to go out to, use unless they have to go to the bathroom, of course, but like they can not constantly, but frequently wash their hands in the building. If it's a situation where they're like coughing or sneezing, they can easily go over to the sink in our classroom and clean themselves up and return to learning versus having to go out to the bathroom in the hallway where a lot more students are kind of convening and sharing that space. As it'll be easier for me to at least supervise and make sure that I'm keeping it clean, just for their safety and my safety as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, I'm glad that you have a sink. I've never really been in a classroom unless it was like a science lab that had a sink. So I'm glad that you have access to that. But after having a year of virtual and hybrid learning, what are you most excited about returning to the classroom, and what are you least excited about?
I am so excited to be able to recreate that sense of classroom community within my classroom. That's one big thing that I missed this year. My administration, my coworkers can tell you, Ms.Clanton is all about relationships, relationships, relationships. And although I did make, meaningful connections and relationships with my students virtually, it just wasn't the same as how it would have been in person. So I'm really excited to be able to recreate that sense of classroom community. I'm excited to turn to a somewhat normal classroom, because although some students thrived virtually, there were also some students that had a really hard time being able to grasp the technology. So I'm happy to be able to go back to being able to balance both things. And then I'm also excited to see the growth at the end of the year, like how much student progress, how much students have made, what am I trying to say? I'm excited to see how much students have grown throughout the year, like their growth.
Anything that you're not so excited about in returning to class?
And then also the constant fear and like worry around, okay, well, how long are we actually going to be able to do this? Is something that I'm not looking forward to, especially with these new variants popping up like left and right. And some people are still trying to carry life as normal. That's one thing that I'm not too thrilled about. And that's thinking back to what you said about precautions. That was something that my county put in place. Like if the state of Maryland or our county gets to a certain positivity rating, then we would return to like a hybrid model, or depending on how high that positivity rating was, we would return back to fully virtual. So like just thinking about that in the back of my brain and watching the positivity rate increase, it's just like, all right, I'm doing all this preparation now. How long do I have?
Yeah. Do you think that like the parent teacher relationship is going to change at all, or do you feel like that's something that's been pretty consistent regardless of whatever module you're learning in?
Um, I think that it may change a little. I think that last year during virtual teaching, well, at least in my case, it definitely made the parent-teacher relationships that I have with my parents a lot better. And luckily this year, oh, you talked about being excited. I completely forgot to mention. So last year I taught third grade. This year I'm teaching fourth grade. I'm fortunate enough to have some of those same students that I had last year. So being able to continue the relationships I had with them and their parents, um, I think I think it will be a positive change if anything, because parents have been home for so long. They've seen things that they might not have seen before. And I know personally, I was in constant communication with lots of parents because they always had questions, and I tried to always have answers. Sometimes I had to put those questions on hold to go find the answers. But I think that definitely blossomed beautiful parent-teacher relationships.
But since you are going back and you are starting, you said your fourth year,
This will be my fourth year. Seems
do you
like
have do you have any advice for other teachers, whether it's their first year teaching by themselves or just teachers in general, for going back to in-person learning? Anything, tricks of the trade that you learned that you feel can be applicable to this situation?
um so I guess I kind of talked about this before, but I guess I would start with saying, or my one piece of advice would be grace. We're all pretty much starting over. Remember to be patient with your students. Remember to be patient with those parents, your colleagues, but most importantly, be patient with yourself, because you're kind of learning how to do your job, or not learning how to do your job all over again, but trying to get back into the groove of doing your job all over again. And if it is your first year teaching, um, welcome. Uh, I definitely learned a lot during my first year. And I know for me, it was like not learn as I go, but I picked up on different things. Don't be afraid to try something new. If you found this really cool idea and it's going really good for 2 weeks, and then that third week is getting rocky again, like don't get disappointed that it's getting rocky. You might just have to find something else that works for you. And what works for others may not work for you. So if you're different, it's okay. Be different.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that whole being patient with yourself, because that has been a really big learning curve for me. I always thought that like I could learn in any setting, but I've learned that I do much better in the classroom. I feel a lot more motivated to pay attention, and to be more engaged with the material in the classroom. So that has been a learning curve for me. Just like it's okay if you don't understand something because you're not able to be in the classroom and like get that special one-on-one attention. So sometimes you may have to go out and personally seek it out. Instead, you can't always rely on that classroom time, and it's a learning curve. So just be patient with yourself no matter what situation you're in. But I mean, it sounds like, Asia, you guys are doing everything that you can to ensure the safety of your students, the staff, and families that are there. It sounds like you've implemented some great resources for your students. I'm sure that they are going to love having you as their teacher this year. But do you have any closing thoughts, anything else that you want to say, any messages to your students or fellow teachers or parents out there? Now is the time for you to say your piece.
I think I would leave with this one thing. My school did this really cool project this year, starting back just because we wanted to build positivity going back into this new school year after, you know, um, learning in a pandemic. So we decided to paint our parking spots different colors with different positive messages. So I guess I'll leave with the message that I painted in my parking spot, and that was believe in yourself and you are unstoppable. Signed, MsClanton.
Thank you so much, Ms.Clanton. And I know that you have an Amazon wish list for supplies for your classroom. So if you feel so inclined to donate the lovely Ms.Clanton, and her students, the link for her Amazon wish list will be down below in the description box. But thank you so much for watching. And again, if you enjoyed the sneak peek that you saw here, please feel free to check our Spotify and all other available podcast platforms where you can listen to the full length episode. Thank you so much for listening and for watching.
Thank you.